I was interested in doing some sort of talk that was mostly a conversation between two complete strangers that are in the industry that might have something similar yet something different that they can offer as an insight. There aren't very many talks with artists that are a little bit more casual and kind of get into some insights that I think you can only really get if there's like a consistent dialogue. So this is the experiment. So rather than go through like in-depth backgrounds, I had both the artists give me a quick little bio, and then I will introduce them. They can come in and sit down and get cozy. So here we go. First up, after attending film school in Boston, he moved to Toronto in 2008 to pursue a career in commercials and film. He worked as a PA on several commercial sets and interned at post houses and worked about jobs, having never learned much about post-production and design coming out of film school. He saw a ton of really cool work by individuals who were doing all their own shooting, editing, and 3D motion design on projects. Quickly realizing he was behind the curve and missing some pretty valuable skill sets, he decided to go back to school. He went to BFS, taking a one-year digital design program at Vancouver, focusing on motion design. After a rigorous year, he moved back to Toronto in 2012 and was hired as a designer at Crush, one of Toronto's major commercial design studios. There, he developed a lot of skills while in-house, from illustrating for animations to getting deep into C4D and learning to become a good team player. His passion for the craft flourished, and was also maybe one of the most smiley people I know. After 4 years in studio, it was time to sink his teeth into the freelance world, and he is currently a full-time freelance motion designer. Ladies and gentlemen, Julian Ablaza.
Hello everyone.
Okay, she moved to Toronto from Pickering to attend OCAD in 1997. There, she specialized in industrial design with dreams of becoming a famous product designer that would change people's lives. She applied to school in Sweden, the Umeå Institute of Design, and was accepted into a one-year course called Advanced Design Visualization. She was in a small class of 9 people from all over the world where they learned how to use a few popular programs I'm sure you're familiar with. Maya, After Effects, Photoshop being the core. She wanted more creativity in her life, and she reached out on Facebook looking, quote, looking for an internship at an animation house, where a friend referred her to a Cup of Coffee Studios. And as she says, that was it, my career path was set, and I didn't even know it yet. She ran the Toronto VFX gauntlet working at Cup of Coffee, Mr. X, spin of VFX, gaining a love for the pipeline, first with After Effects, then leveling up with Nuke. Finally, in October 2014, she left Spin and has since become a senior compositor at Soho ever since. Ladies and gentlemen, Amanda Hollingworth. Tell me a little bit about your tenure at Crush.
I started, reaching out to different companies and credit Gary, who's the creative director there, responded right away. He was like, yeah, when you're in town, come see me. We got along really well. He liked my portfolio, and he brought me on board. And from there, it was just an incredible learning experience. After 4 years, there were changes in the company that I couldn't really control, and just made the decision to make the move to freelancing.
And now, having moved into freelance, was there any specific learning lessons that you picked up on in a major studio that has been transplanted now to your workflow?
Yeah, I mean, not to get too nerdy, but file structures, right? Even if you're a freelancer and you're going into, sure, when you have freelancers come into Soho and their file structures are all messed up, it's a pain in the butt. Or
studio to studio, that's always
right.
different.
Yeah, and being malleable is really important. So, when I go into another studio, for example, sometimes, Alan's here, and sometimes I'll work with him, and his file structure is different, but you have to respect those things because it's the best.
But it's the best.
It is pretty good. It's great.
Amanda,
Yes.
what's Soho like? And typically, what does a day look like?
I go in and I read my email. It has all the things I need to do that day. It's already organized for me by my producer. She's amazing. She gets there before everybody. And
When's that?
She gets there at 8:30, we all get in at around 9:30.
Okay.
Yeah, and so so my list is there. There's a schedule of dailies, so that's when you kind of like put your work out for them to review, and they'll call you in if they need to and give you notes or not. And my day is just fixing stuff based on notes. So it's funny when people get into this industry, especially I think from a student point of view, when you're only doing work for yourself, and then you have to go and take notes from other people. You have to adjust to the fact that you're not making the decisions anymore, and your job is literally to just say yes and do what they want you to do. So that's my whole thing. Just making changes and adding things, and then they send it to the client and see what they think and see if they want to make any changes, and then it comes back until it's done.
And Julie, you're just getting into freelance. It's a different schedule. What's that like?
It's good. I'm pretty regimented, so as a person, so
Yeah, both of you are very scheduled,
yeah.
regimented people for sure.
Super boring. Definitely really boring guys. My day, I know you guys might cringe at this, typically starts at like 5:15 in the morning, and I get up, I usually I do jiu-jitsu, Brazilian jiu-jitsu, so I go train in the morning at around 6:30 until about 8. If I'm not there, I'm at the gym or running, and then I'm at my desk at around 8:39. And if I do sleep in, or I don't train in the morning and decide to train at noon, I typically still will wake up at the same time and start my day at 7. So I get ahead a few hours and then take the middle of the day as a break. And then I end at around 6:30 or 7. I go to bed at around 10 o'clock. So yeah, it's a little bit crazy.
That sounds wonderful. What kind of things have you seen in your life that you're like, if these things happen, then I'm going to be in the zone?
Oh yeah, I have those. First is coffee, that has to happen.
Yes.
And then a good playlist, because luckily we're all with headphones on. I'm sure you guys are all the same, right? Podcasts are for things that I, like roto work or boring stuff that I don't have to think about, then I can focus on a podcast. But if I actually have to think and get something done, it has to be music. And then if I can get a good playlist on, I can usually lose myself in my work pretty fast. So I don't know, is everyone the same with that? That's pretty much how you do it? Or, I mean, time of day wise, I feel like in the morning maybe I'm a bit slower, and like right after lunch actually I'm way better because I'm not hungry anymore. In the morning I'm hungry, I'm like, I just need something. And then, like, yeah, that's good. Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
You both are, probably because of this amazing schedule thing you're talking about. You're both avid athletes, right?
I am trying to be. I'm going to be 40 next year, so I'm trying my best. So to just kind of like look at my health from a different point of view, that's been really great. But it's definitely been the fact that my job is not as stressful as it was, and there's not a lot of demand for me to spend my time doing that. And I don't know if that's the same since you've been freelancing. You feel your stress levels better.
Yeah, way better.
Yeah.
Because sometimes in studio there are bigger demands, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. And sometimes it happens for a few weeks, and that's fine. I definitely had my occasions in studio where it would go for like a month, and you start feeling like a horrible person, like you're really deteriorating as an individual, and like starting to shrink and growing nails, and the shadows just like creeping into the shadow and not touching the sunlight. So yeah, I mean, now I still always prioritize, obviously, my work. It's the most important thing. But I also recognize how important the things I do outside are in informing the way I do my work, and informing how the kind of energy I put into the work. Is it positive energy or is it negative energy? When you're working, it's the same. Sometimes your mind drifts. It's an exercise in being present and taking that energy and the stresses from that situation and being able to deal with things, whether it's like, oh, I don't know how to fix this problem, this technical problem, or maybe your producer's breathing down your throat, or you disagree with your creative director, or your client's being a pain and they just want to change everything. It's how you deal with that. And I think that's the major advantage that I've found. It's just being, and it all comes from taking care of yourself, I think. Now all that, anxiety, energy, stress is gone, Now you look like that weirdo who's smiling when the client's asking for this major change, and you're like, yeah, it's cool, man, get it done. As opposed to being throwing things around, having all this negative energy. Nobody wants to hang out with you.
Well, yeah, because the client note is the client note. Like, you're going to have to do it or you're going to have to try. So you might as well be happy about it and be positive, and maybe that'll make other people feel like they should be positive.
I think it also helps the people around you, right? Like your team, when you're positive, I think it goes a long way, especially when you're a freelancer and you're thrown into a mix where like the chemistry is already built in, whether it's, you know, at Reactive or Alter Ego or any of the other studios you go in, they have a chemistry and they have an energy. And your job is to go in there and not muck around with the positive energy. You want to add to it and try to enhance it, right? Then they might want to bring you back in.
Yeah, well, I don't really have to worry about being brought back in, but at the same time, if you set the mood of a positive mood for a show, people are actually going to be, you're going to be more approachable. People are going to ask questions when they're stuck or when they're confused. Whereas if you're angry all the time, people aren't going to ask questions, things aren't going to be communicated, and there's going to be more mistakes. So I found a lot of like the people that I mentor, they appreciate that I'm extra nice, even if they're testing my patience. I'm extra nice and understanding, and I try to do that on purpose because I want them to be comfortable asking me. I don't want them to think like, oh, I don't want to bother her with this stupid question, because that it loses.
And typically, how many projects do you handle at a time?
This year, I think I've been pushing it a little bit more than I should be. Generally, I try to take on one big project at a time, but this year I'm finding I'm doing 2 or 3 at a time.
Are you working on any personal projects? Because I feel like you've always got something in the back burner.
I'm trying. I'm like trying so hard to think of the next one. It's so hard. So I was talking to a friend earlier about trying to come up with the personal project and how hard it is. You know, it's everybody here is an artist, right? You're trying to think of how do you make it technically beautiful, conceptually, interesting, and executed well. And there's so much. And I went through a period for a year where I was doing just like very small projects, and very small like 1-week projects, stills, and now I'm at a point where I'm trying to push it where I do bigger pieces. Like one of the projects I posted earlier last month. So I'm trying to think of the bigger pieces now, and I think one of the ways to do that is try to think of something you've always wanted to do, and then pinpoint maybe a technique that you want to learn, and try to fit those two together.
But what makes a project something that you're like, oh, I really want to work on this?
Have you guys read the Freelancer's Manifesto by School of Motion? Yeah, School of Motion guys over here. Yeah. Okay, so funny enough, the guy who wrote it, who runs Joey Corman, the guy who runs School of Motion, went to my university. So I read that email. I read his book, and he has this chart that he likes to imagine. I'm kind of spoiling the book a bit, but there's a lot more. So get the book. It's really, really, really helpful. But there's a project that costs. It has a big budget, but it's not creative at all. We've all gone through this, right? And then there's the projects that have no budget but are super creative. And his concept is you don't want to end up in the middle, where you're just sort of 50-50. It's kind of creative, but doesn't pay as the right amount. You want to be on either ends, where you either have full creative control or a lot of say in the creative, and you know it's going to help on your portfolio, or at the far end where I could do this in my sleep and the money is good, so that you can pay your mortgage, you can pay your bills and stuff. I actually keep that in the back of my mind a lot now, with other things. So for example, am I going to learn a new skill? Is this 2D or 3D character animating? What can I take away from this? And then those are added caveats to that sort of graph that I have. Sort of starts from there and then carry on. I do love getting projects that can go on my portfolio. So yeah.
And then are you mentoring? Would you go so far to say mentoring, or is it mostly like
They're just juniors, so they come in and I just basically tell them to ask me questions. I send them, I have like a welcome to comp email that for the show we're working on very specifically because we have to convert it to 3D after. I don't know if anyone's done 3D conversions, but they're the worst. So yeah, so it's just like some tips and tricks for that. And then I have three that, three that I'm doing that with, and then two of them are like literally helping me on each shot. So I can just give them the smaller pieces of work. And then what I do is I review with them every day what they've gone through, and if they have any questions, and then if they have any problems, I can troubleshoot it with them.
What about you? Mentor or mentee?
Mentor or mentee. A good friend who runs a studio called Sovereign State. He's a brand designer. I look at him as a mentor for sure, creatively. He's not a motion designer, but very conceptual. He's one of those guys who always lights a fire under your butt to want to do more. I find that I'm mentored by different people in different studios. Like, you know, when I go work with Alan mentors me, you know, he's over here, he's awesome. But, you know, he has his own way of guiding the creative process, and you can learn from that. When, you know, you go to another studio, for example, you know, worked with Secret Location a couple times, and their workflow is a little different, but, you know, it takes some great stuff out of it. And you look at their creative directors and how they're world building, kind of try to take from them, or secretly take them as a mentor. They don't know it.
That's sweet.
Yeah, I think that's why I'm looking to travel. Like I'm trying to find a job in the UK right now for August, and just for a little bit. But I think that's why. I think it's because I want to work with some new people and see if I can learn some new tricks with them. I don't know. But yeah, no, it is nice having like connections in different spots.
I think everyone solves you know, problems in very different ways. Sometimes they have it like right away. You never know. Or sometimes it's about how you handle your business, or how you handle yourself as an individual. And
well, even like within Nuke, I don't know how many people use it here, but it's a node-based system, and so there's a million combinations that you can kind of do for anything. So even just learning like a new trick, a new node, and make people write their own gizmos.
But like, do you ever find, do you have somebody who you look to who's further along in their career, and you're like, wow, that's how I want to model my career, because they don't look like a burnt out person, but you know, they're still a decent human being.
No, unfortunately, everyone in my work is burnt out. But that's the thing, like, especially with work-life balance, talking about that, like, I don't have a family, I'm not going to have one, and that's a choice I've made, but people don't choose that, and once the people that do choose that, of course, they are more burnt out and more challenged to kind of like keep their work and home life together, right? So I guess when I see people ahead of me, that's usually where they're at, and so I don't really have anything to pull on there, but I guess just the idea of anyone that I know that, like, because you've spent some time overseas too, right? Anyone I know that's just like traveled through work, I guess that's my ideal situation. Not to constantly travel, I love Toronto and I want to stay here, but just like to have little breaks every so often to just be able to go. And the nice thing about the VFX industry, I'm sure with yours too, like your skills are so transferable and so in demand, and the timelines are short on projects, so you can get away with going somewhere for like 3 months or 6 months and then coming back, and it's fine.
I think that's actually one of the biggest things about motion design is how transferable the skill sets are. And I didn't notice that until I left. Being in studios. Primarily when I was in studio as commercials, broadcast spots, some for the US, sometimes online. Primarily it was that. As soon as you left, you realize like people need Cinema 4D for sports. They need it for, you know, I guess interactive, everything, web, and now it's just like it's creeping into different places even more. And I think that's probably one of the coolest things about it. Like while I was in studio, it was like 100% broadcast. When I left, I might do like 20% broadcast now. And everything else is online or interactive or done a little bit of VR stuff, pre-baked, nothing too fancy.
Oh, I remember that.
Yes. A couple of them actually. Yeah, it can go to different places. You have to be a problem solver in that sense as well, right? Yeah. Learn on the fly.
Yeah, cool. All right, that is our first TOMO Talk.
Thank you, Josh.
Thank you to our lovely artists who decided to come up here and have a chit chat. I'm so glad that we met, and I like this format.
Yeah.
I hope maybe through your guys' feedback we can make this better. So we've also launched a Instagram. We put it up on the wall as well. Please join in and send us your work.